Well, hi there, food friends. It's Kevin.
And Marianne behind the camera.
And welcome to Cavalcade of Food. And sis, we are baking today because why not, right?
Right.
So we're going to make a chocolate pound cake. How does that grab you?
Sounds good.
It does. And pound cakes are great. And pound cakes are actually probably in the realm of baking cakes. Pound cakes have been around for a long time, okay? Longer than you and me combined, Toots, all right? So you know that's long. The pound cake recipes have been found from the 1700s. And the word pound cake is because a lot of the early recipes, Mare, called for a pound of flour, a pound of butter, okay, a pound of eggs. Okay, it was a pound of everything kind of combined. So that has been fine-tuned over the many generations. And one thing I'll say is that up here in the north, meaning Michigan where we are, you know, pound cakes people like pound cakes. But I didn't understand the culture of the pound cake until I traveled in the South. You know our dear friend Hans?
Yes.
Now he makes a mean pound cake. And he's Mr. North Carolina. And in the South, pound cakes are not just a dessert, they're a tradition. Okay? Serious business, pound cakes. Here in the North, we have pound cakes, but up here, a pound cake is usually a delivery system for something else, like fruit, or whipped cream, or ice cream, or whatever. But it's been my experience, anyways, in the South that pound cake stands on its own as something to really appreciate and enjoy. So we're going to think the same about our chocolate pound cake. So something I want to do is normally I have ingredients already and stuff like that, and I just start throwing things together, and I'm going to do that, but normally I do my prep work off camera. But I've heard from some viewers, Marianne, that are not necessarily experienced bakers or have a lot of baking prowess, asking some fairly simple questions. And I think that's great, because a lot of our food friends, Mare, are very experienced bakers. They know their way around, okay, with regards to baking. And so for them, and for those of you who that applies to, this might be like, okay, I know this. But for those who've asked me, this is more of a primer of just some baking basics. My way of doing things, like anything in life, there's 100 ways to do it, and you can ask 100 bakers and get 100 different questions or answers. So I'm just going to show you how I do things. Number one, be organized. Get everything you need for your recipe together. Do that first, okay? Don't do it catch as catch can and just try to assemble ingredients as you go through. No. Get everything together. Make sure you have everything. How many times have I gone to make something, Marianne, and what did I realize?
You don't have anything.
I'm missing an ingredient, okay? So before you even get started, get everything together and figure out what you have and what you don't have, what the recipe calls for. That's first. Read that recipe. Read the recipe at least twice before you even turn the oven on, folks, okay? Understand what the writer of the recipe is trying to tell you in terms of process, not just the list of ingredients, but the steps involved in putting it together. Read the recipe, okay? At least twice so that you have that going in. and then, start assembling the pieces of the cake in this case. So, a couple things. Most cakes have flour, right?
Right.
So we're going to start with that. So this one, Mare, calls for 3 cups of flour. Now, here's a 1 cup measure, okay? And everybody's got measuring cups. I hope you do. If you don't, you can get some. You can get them at the dollar store. You don't have to spend a lot of money, okay? But I like the stainless steel ones because they're kind of sturdy and they're imprinted with the measurements. So this is 1 cup. So here's what I do. I've got my flour over here in this bowl, all right? The best method, I think, is the spoon and level. You see what I'm doing here, honey?
Yep.
We got a big spoon. We're putting it in. Then I take the flat edge of a knife and I just do that. 1 cup. Now, some people do the scoop method, and you can do that. I find, my own experience, is that sometimes compacts the flour, and you end up with really more flour, a little bit, it's marginal, than the recipe calls for. Okay, so 1, 2, this is the 3rd cup of flour. There you go. All right, so guess what? Now we have our flour measured. Put that aside. Okay, so we're going to, the recipe says, because I've read it through a few times, to combine the dry ingredients, which are the flour, the salt, and the baking soda. So here's our salt. Calls for 1 teaspoon. So that means a level teaspoon. We're on the level, aren't we, Toots?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
So here's a level teaspoon of salt. We're going to put that over there. Then, normally cakes will call for some sort of leavener, baking soda, baking powder. In this case, it calls for baking soda. So here's what I do. You know how baking soda comes in a box, right? Because those boxes are not really sealable once you open them. So what I do is I put them in a container like this, but I keep the lid, okay? The lid does 2 things. 1, the expiration date is printed on the lid, so I know how long I should keep this baking soda hanging around. But the other thing I use it for, let me make sure I got my measurement, which is a 1/2 teaspoon. Also, get yourself some measuring spoons. Again, they're not expensive. You can get them at the dollar store. Is I can use this to, look at that, make a nice flat level here. So we're putting in a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And then I put that lid back on, keep that baking soda fresh. It goes back in the cupboard till next time. Now, sometimes a recipe will ask for you to sift these things together. This one, it just says to combine, and I like to use a whisk. Most flour these days is pre-sifted. A lot of the older recipes call for sifting the flour because sometimes that wasn't done prior to the flour being packaged. But nowadays, almost all the flour is pre-sifted. All right. I like to use a whisk. I think it is better in terms of getting those things incorporated. All right. So our dry mixture is done. Now, most cakes call for butter or some kind of fat shortening, right? We've got butter. In this case, 2 sticks of butter. And so each stick of butter is a 1/2 cup. So 2 sticks of butter is how much, honey?
1 cup.
Oh, the girl's a math whiz. Don't kid yourself, folks. All right, so 1 cup of butter right here, all right? 1 stick of butter is also 8 tablespoons. So 2 sticks.
16 tablespoons.
What can I say, folks? Anyways, so here we are. Now, the butter is going to get creamed with the sugar. That's often a method of cake making, and it's true in this recipe. But you got to take the butter out of the fridge, folks, or it's going to be too hard and it's not going to cream up with them sugars. So, you can set it out on the counter. Obviously, if you are in a bit of a hurry, taking the wrapping off the butter will help it soften more. You understand that, right, Mare?
Right.
Because
and then cutting it up will help it even more.
What
Get more
Missy
air
just
to
said.
it.
So it's like, one, we'll take the wax wrapper off because that exposes the butter to the air. And it's on the warm side today, right, Mare?
Right.
And if you want to go faster, take your butter and cut it into chunks like this, okay? Because now you are exposing all of these sides of the butter to the air, greater surface to air, and it will soften even quicker. All right? So, again, baking is often planning ahead. Do I have all the ingredients? Do I need to take the butter out? Do I need to make sure that I have enough this or that? Okay, so I'm going to set the butter over here for right now. Now, another thing, and we've said this many times, eggs should be at room temperature. And this one, folks, gets me often because I'm like, oh, didn't take them eggs out. And generally, I like to take them out a half an hour before I need them. But something that you can do to hasten them coming up to room temperature is put them in a dish of water. Not hot water, okay? Not ice cold water. Just open the tap and let the water cover the eggs, okay? And in about 5 to 10 minutes, those eggs will be right at room temperature, all right? I do that a lot. The next thing that this recipe calls for is buttermilk. Well, guess what I don't have, Toots?
Buttermilk?
Mm-hmm. And I don't buy buttermilk because I don't really use buttermilk that much except for baking. If I know I'm going to do something a lot, like I'm going to make biscuits one day and pancakes the next, and I'll buy a quarter buttermilk to have on hand. But in this case, I don't have buttermilk, but I do have milk. And we're going to make sour milk, okay? And here's how you can do that. So you have a 1 cup measure here, and you need an acid to add to the milk to sour it up. And that can be either white vinegar or lemon juice. Works also very nicely. So here's what we do. I need a cup of buttermilk. So I'm going to take and measure 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. And we're going to put that in the measuring cup. Then I've got my milk here, and I'm going to now fill this cup up to the 1 cup marking. There we are. And we're going to give it a little stir around. And we're going to set that aside. It'll take 5 minutes or so, and you will see that that milk doesn't quite curdle, but it will start to sour. And that's what you want. And that's going to replace the buttermilk in the recipe. Okay? And then finally, because this is a chocolate pound cake, well, guess what we got to use, Mare?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Now, there's 2 ways of getting chocolate into a batter. You can use cocoa powder, right?
Right.
Which we're all familiar with. This actually wants me to use 4 ounces of semi-sweet baking chocolate, melted and cooled. So here I have a 4-ounce bar of baking chocolate, all right? And you can, it's scored so that actually you could just measure off, what you needed. And I'm going to break this up a little bit and Now, depending on what you're going to do with it, you can chop it up. And I might do that. Let me just run a knife through it. And you'll see over here, next to the flour, which I'll move, I've got a double boiler going. So the double boiler is a pot of simmering water on a low simmer and a glass bowl over top of it. I'm going to turn that down a little bit, and we are going to add our chocolate in there. Chocolate melts relatively quickly, and it burns even more quickly. Burnt chocolate isn't good, okay? Mary Ann's making a face, and she's right. It doesn't taste good, and you don't want to burn the chocolate. And I've seen so many people put this chocolate in a microwave oven, okay, and guess what? They overdo it. And then their chocolate is burnt. And you know what? Once it's burnt, and you can't use it. So we don't want to do that. We want to melt it gently, and we're going to put it in here and allow it to melt. It takes a little extra time. Not a lot, though, and it will start to, it's already melting, just that fast, okay? And we're going to let this melt. It smells good. Now, whenever, not whenever, but in a lot of circumstances when I'm using chocolate, making a chocolate cake, I have a secret ingredient, instant coffee. Now, you don't want the cake to taste like coffee, but coffee brings out the chocolate flavor. It intensifies it, okay? And we don't put a lot in. I'm going to put in a teaspoon of instant coffee granules. You could also use instant espresso granules if you wanted to. So let me just put this in. I'm going to sprinkle that in with the chocolate. Okay? And that's it. So chocolate and coffee, again, you're not going to taste the coffee. I know, Mary Ann's like, oh, I don't like coffee. Yes, I know you don't like coffee. And you're not going to taste the coffee, but what you are going to taste, honey, is some really intense chocolate. All right, let's show our friends what's going on here, Mary Ann. I don't know if you're able to. I'm going to get a pot holder and just turn this so that you can see how that chocolate's melted.
Yep.
Already beautifully. Yep. Okay, so much so that I'm going to turn the heat off of this thing. That's all it takes, folks, to melt that chocolate. Now, you know, again, and without scorching it or whatever. And I'll take it off the heat so it can cool down. All right, now I've got most of my ingredients prepped. I still need to get some sugar and some vanilla extract at the ready, but everything else is there. My oven is preheated to 325 degrees. Get your pan ready. We're going to use a 12-cup, look at this vintage baby. We're going to use a 12-cup Bundt pan in this case. You could also use a tube pan if you wanted to, but I think it'll be prettier in here, don't you, Mare?
Yes.
So let's use the Bundt pan, which we will spray with baking spray, which has both oil and flour mixed in. And we'll come on back and start putting this cake together. All right, honey, we are now ready to start making our cake. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to cream up the butter and the sugar. So our butter has been softening. I'm going to put that in the bowl here. For a cake like this, you can use a hand mixer. certainly. If you have a stand mixer, this is a great time to break it out. Okay, then I got 2 cups of sugar. Now remember how I measured out the flour, Mare, where I spooned it?
Yeah.
With sugar, you don't have to do that. You can scoop the sugar, okay? Because it doesn't compact the way flour tends to, or at least I don't scoop it. Now, we've got our paddle attachment on here, and we are going to start on low speed, and we're going to get these things combined. Once I start seeing the sugar, the loose sugar sort of disappear as it gets absorbed into the butter, I'm going to turn it on, and we want this light and fluffy. So that will take a few minutes, and we'll let it do its thing. See how light and fluffed up that is, honey?
Yep.
All right, that's what we want. So now I've got some vanilla here, and it always seems funny to put vanilla in a chocolate cake, doesn't it?
Yes.
But you almost have to. Again, vanilla is one of those things, 2 teaspoons, s'il vous plaît. Vanilla is one of those things that really brings out the chocolate. So let's get that vanilla in there. This is a process too that will require you to scrape down as you go through the process here. Very important. You want to get everything off the sides of the bowl so that it all gets a chance to get that vanilla incorporated. Okay. Now, remember our chocolate mixture?
Yeah.
Here it is. So what I'm going to do, it's still on the warm side. You know what? I'm going to put this in the fridge for 3 minutes. You know why I don't want to put this chocolate too warm in here?
So it won't melt the butter?
You got it. Okay, our chocolate's cooled off now. Again, just cool. Let me lift this up. Let me get this chocolate in here. Chocolate and coffee. Again, you won't taste it, but it will heighten the chocolate experience, which is what we are all about. And of course, a chocolate pound cake is really good with so many things. You could certainly have it as you would a regular vanilla pound cake. Really good with vanilla ice cream. All right, let's get this chocolate mixed in here. So this is another situation, Mare, where we're going to do some scraping because we want to get it all the same color here. Let me get that chocolate into the butter and the sugar. All right, we'll get this mixed in and then come back. Next is the eggs. All right, honey, so now the next thing we're going to add are our eggs. So they have come up to room temperature beautifully. We're going to put them in one at a time, okay? Oh, another little baking tip while I'm ranting and raving. Clean as you go, please, okay? Don't have dirty dishes and utensils everywhere. It is just, um, it will leave you unorganized and unfocused. Get stuff at least in the sink. You don't have to wash everything right away, but get it out of your work area and into the sink. So you want to beat, we got 4 eggs. You want to beat it for about a minute every time you put an egg in the batter. And then you want to scrape down, and then we'll add the next egg. So, again, we're going to stop, scrape, and God, it smells good, doesn't it, Mary?
Yeah.
And we're going to add our next egg. There we go. So, we'll do this until all 4 eggs are in the batter. All right, honey, so here's what we've got. 4 eggs in, beaten after each egg goes in. And you made the comment, honey, it looks lighter. And it is in terms of, it's actually, the texture is lighter and the color is lighter. So now what we're going to do, Mare, is we are going to add in our flour alternately with our milk. So part of this is eyeballing a little bit, but we're going to put 1/3 of our flour mixture. So remember, this is flour, salt, and baking soda, right?
Right.
We're going to put 1/3 of it. Again, I'm eyeballing here. In, roughly, okay? We're going to get that in. Start this on low speed, by the way, because you know what happens if you go full tilt right out of the gate, right, Mare?
Yeah, you get a flour facial.
Yes, that's right, honey. Flour facial. All right. You can see a lot of the flour has clung to the side of the bowl. So we want to, again, get our spatula. Some good spatulas are essential baking tools, for sure. All right. So we've got that in. Now what we want to do is we're going to put in half of our sour milk. So here's our milk, and I don't know if you can tell, but it has soured. You can kind of see a little film on the top. So this is a cup. So I'm going to put in about 1/2 cup of this milk. There we go. Get that mixed in. Again, scrape. Now we're going to put in another 1/3 of our flour mixture. And then, Marianne, this will be followed by the other 1/2 cup of our milk. So all the milk will be in. Then we'll put in the final 1/3 of the flour mixture. See how that works?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have everything in. Well, Mare, it's all in, baby. Huh? So, we'll take the beater off here. I can't. There we go. And we're going to get all this good batter. Hands are clean, by the way. Another kitchen must. Wash your hands before starting any cooking and baking project, and wash them as needed as you go. My sister will tell you how many times a day I wash my hands, right, Mare?
Right.
At least when I'm in the kitchen. Umpteen. All right. So we've got this. All right. Boy, I almost want to lick that batter, that beater here. When we were kids, we used to do that all the time. Now, they don't want you to do it. Anyways, we won't go on that tangent. Also helps to keep a damp dish rag handy, especially if you're me, because you will make a mess on the counter. All right, off we go. So we will get our mixer put aside, and let's bring our Bundt pan, which has been sprayed and floured, and we will give this one last little mix. Oh, by the way, food friends, the Cavalcade Radio Hour, which airs locally here on WMIC, or used to, out of Sandusky, Michigan. It's been on hiatus for a while, but it's coming back on July the 6th, which is a Saturday, and which is when it used to be on, Saturdays at 9 a.m. And if you are interested, please tune in. It's an hour-long program, and I've tweaked the format of the show slightly, but it's going to be the same great mix of music. Everything I play comes off of the original vinyl recordings, and I celebrate, as I say, the golden era of recorded music. So yeah, if you're interested, you can go to the station's website, which is sanilacbroadcasting.com, and just click on the Listen Live link there and select the WMIC live stream, and you can hear the program. So I hope you tune in. All right, so now I'm just smoothing out our batter here, Mare. And what do we think? We are going to put it in the oven. Again, we are at 325 degrees. It's got to go a minimum of 90 minutes, which is an hour and a half. It could be up to an hour and 45 minutes, just depending. I'll be honest with you, I think this is the first cake I've baked in our 1954 Westinghouse, so I am excited to see how it comes out and how long it takes. It's a pretty big oven, so we'll give it 90 minutes, and if it needs longer, we'll give it longer. And so we're going to do the old toothpick test to determine doneness. So if the toothpick comes out clean, we know it's done. All right, honey. It's been 95 minutes. We're gonna, oh my gosh. Can you smell the chocolate?
Yes.
Look at that. Wow. Okay, so it springs back nicely, and clean teen. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to let this cake kind of rest here in the pan for about 10 minutes. Okay?
Okay.
Then we're going to turn it out, hopefully, and let it cool completely, all right, before we dig in. But it really has a wonderful chocolate aroma, and boy, I mean, it just made it, didn't it?
Yeah.
So, anyways, had you used a tube pan, probably would have given me a little bit more room, although it's fine. I really kind of wanted the Bundt shape. So we'll be back and get this cake out of the pan. All right, honey, so we've waited 10 minutes. You always want to do that because it takes a few minutes for the cake to sort of settle. And as it settles, it sort of contracts and pulls away from the sides. So now that it has done that, hopefully, without sticking, because we sprayed it, we will turn it out. So I'm going to do like this here, and then go like this. How's that?
Looks
There
good.
it is, folks. Well, that's a good-looking pound cake. Now, we're going to let it cool completely. The finishing options are infinite, but you want it to cool completely before you do any kind of finishing with it. One, you don't have to do anything. You can just leave it as is. Or, if you're so inclined, you could dust it with powdered sugar. Or what I do sometimes, Mare, is I make a combination of powdered sugar and cocoa powder, and I dust it with that. You could also make a chocolate glaze if you wanted to. Lots of possibilities. It depends whether or not you're going to eat it sort of on its own, or maybe you're going to have it with something else. So however you want to serve it. Well, honey, it's cooled down, and something I want to do, I've decided I'm not going to make a chocolate glaze for it, because I think we're going to serve it with ice cream. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
So here's something I like to do, a little quick tip. I got one of these old metal shakers. You could use any kind of a shaker bottle. But I like to use this, if I can open it, I like to use this for dusting. So here's what I do. I've got powdered sugar here. I'm going to put in, let's say about 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. Then 1 of cocoa powder, okay? I'm going to mix it up, because the cocoa powder sort of on its own is a little bit bitter, so we sweeten it up just like you do in baking. Okay, so put that aside here. We'll put our lid on. Now, underneath the cooling rack, I put a sheet of wax paper. Who loves wax paper, Mare?
You do?
This guy. I love wax paper, and I don't think wax paper gets its due. All right, so now look what I'm doing. Look at this. This is a sweet cocoa topping. Okay, just like that. It'll give it a little bit of more chocolate and a little bit more sweet. Now I'm going to move this off of that onto an official cake plate, and we're going to dig in. So, shall we, Mare?
Yes, we shall.
We are going to cut wow, beautiful. So, let's just start here and show our friends the interior of this really beautiful chocolate pound cake. And you're getting the chocolate, getting the butter, and oh yes, we have some vanilla caramel ice cream to go with. But I think at first, Mare, don't you think we should just try the cake
Yes.
on its own? Pound cake, will you marry me? It's good. It's got everything you want. First of all, it's not heavy. The cake is light, but it still has a certain density that you expect with a pound cake, and the chocolate flavor comes just right on through. It's moist. Oh my gosh. And the crumb, it's really delicate. I did not use cake flour. Again, just all-purpose flour. So, not that we need to gild the lily here, but serve it up with some vanilla-based ice cream. Now this one's got a little caramel in it, so, you know, why not? Wow, you've got a dessert to die for. This is delicious. Wow. Hans, you'd be proud of me. Anyways, just beautiful, this pound cake. So before I sit here and eat the whole thing, because I can see the look on my sister's face, and she will get a nice big piece. Well, that's just today. It's just you and me, kid. We got to eat this cake. Can we do it?
I don't know.
You could cut this cake in half or in quarters and wrap it up really well and freeze it. That's another way to do it, if you're so inclined. Of course, if you've got a crowd, you easily get 14 to 16 slices out of this cake, so it would certainly serve a crowd. Speaking of my sister, thank you for working that camera.
You're welcome.
And we want to thank our food friends. We want to encourage them to check out the website, which is
Cavalcadefood.com.
Cavalcadefood.com. And you can subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps the channel out. Give this video a like. And boy, we hope everybody's having a great summer. And we will look so forward to seeing you again real soon back here on Cavalcade of Food. Bye, everybody.
Bye.